This is your snack sandwich. Today I'm going to be taking a quick look at Code4rena. Now I decided to look at this a little while ago, and I've read through the docs today, and I figured I should share it with you. It's not really something that you can use to like invest in or try to make money from, but if you are a dev and you want to think about coding, you can join this and stuff. It's kind of like an auditing firm that's run more like a DAO. I really like the way this thing's set up, so I've decided I've made a flowchart for you. There's no lines, but there's a lot of different pieces to it that I'll go through the flowchart and explain it to you, and you can kind of get an idea of how this thing works. As usual, I've come to the website, I've read through the docs, and I've read these articles that they link to here. And if you want to know more, I would suggest you to come and do the same thing. So I do have the flowchart, as I mentioned, so I'm going to swing over to that and kind of explain to you how this thing works and then how it kind of differs from a normal audit, so to speak. If you would like to support the channel, I would suggest you to check out the secretsandwich.xyz. It's the Secret Sandwich NFT project. You can come here, you can mint an NFT, or you can come and check out your NFTs. Okay, so let's get back to it. Okay, so here I am on the flowchart now. This is not really going to look like a flowchart. It's more like a single page PowerPoint presentation. But anyways, I feel it's worth sharing because it's pretty interesting and it's clever and so forth. So let's kind of go through this. Okay, so here we are on the first part right here. We have 5 actors, 5 people that take part in this system. Okay, so we have what they call the sponsor, and that's like the project who's seeking an audit, who's seeking their code base to be checked by other people, right? Now he's bringing the money and he's bringing the code. Okay, now these are the 4 actors of the Code4rena. So they have this, what they call this lookout, and you can consider him more like the business development person, so, or the sales per se. So he will be the first person who speaks with the sponsor and interacts with the sponsor and explains to the sponsor how this system works and tries to design a package that suits the sponsor's needs and budget. Okay. Then we have this person called the scout. There's not a whole lot in the docs that explain what this person, the scout, is. So what I kind of presume this person is he's the person who's going to prepare the code and the system and everything. Prepare the like basically like the back end for the auditors to kind of start the contest. Okay, so one of the things that make this thing very different than a traditional type audit is it's run like a contest, kind of like a hackathon, so to speak. Okay, and I'll get into the more details on how it's very different from auditing, regular auditing, as I go through here. So then we have these people called the wardens. They are basically the devs, the security experts who know code very well and who are actually going to do the auditing work by checking the code and providing their feedback, so to speak, right? And then we have the judges, and the judges are like basically the managers of these wardens or these code checkers. So these are the people who decide whether a code has, like whether an exploit or a vulnerability or a report, a bug report, is considered to be valid or so forth. So these are like experts for the experts. So I kind of like to think of them as like the managers of these wardens or these code checkers. Okay. So as I mentioned, the lookout's going to work with the sponsor and kind of decide like what kind of package they want. There are five choices, but I'm going to start with these 3 for now, and I'll bring out the other 5 later. So we have different kinds of opportunities. We have the ones that are called open. And this is like a fully public, everything's public, everything can be seen by everyone, okay, and there's reasons to do that. And then there's a private, where, say the sponsor doesn't want his name to be attached to it, or especially at the current time, he doesn't want the code to be shared with anyone who's out there. Now there could be reasons for this. Maybe the code is already deployed, or maybe they want to stealth deploy, or maybe they don't want to leak their secrets to competitors until they're ready to deploy live, right? And then they have these things called the invited. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper in there. So the first thing I'm going to mention before I get into deeper is that they all generally last for about 3 to 7 days. So this is not like a 1-month audit type thing. Okay, it's a high impact, quick, fast thing. It doesn't take long to set up. You don't have like huge waiting list, and it's very fast to get done. So it's usually like a week less than a week of actual everybody hardcore looking at your code, trying to find bugs and stuff, and then reporting them back to you. Okay. So in the case of open, why would you choose open if you could choose private? Well, open gives you access to a lot of devs. So anybody who wants to take part in these open audits or these open contests, they can just sign up. Okay, like they don't have to do a lot of like background checks or anything like that. They just sign up and then they can take part in this. Basically the only thing they need to supply is a wallet that they want if they earn any money from doing their reports. Okay. Now on these other two, the private and the you're invited, they reduces the amount of eyes on your code, but it allows you to maintain privacy. Okay, so these people here that are part of these private or the you're invited is they have some background checks done on them. So they're all KYC'd, so they have some identification verification with Code4rena. I'm not sure if the sponsor has access to that or not, but Code4rena does have these guys physical, like actual live identities, so that they can know who they are. So they're KYC'd, right? They've all signed some non-disclosure agreements so that anything they do see in here, they won't share it with other competitors or something like that. And then they also have a good track record of inside Code4rena. So you couldn't get into this on your first try. You have to do some of these open ones first, build up a track record of being good, and then also do the KYC and then the non-disclosure agreement, and then you can take part in these private and invited ones. Okay, so private ones are a little bit different than invited ones. The private ones you have more eyes on it, and invited you kind of really select who you want. But when you select, like the really selective ones is like, oh, we only want the best. And then the best will look at it, and then within 24 hours they decide, oh, yes, I will take part in this contest or not. Okay, so it kind of, if you can think of it like this is a lot of people, this is far fewer, and this is very fewer. Okay, now there are, like I said, it's all about the sponsor's desire to keep secrets and stuff like that, which would and also the cost as well. The cost, as you go down, the cost would probably go down slightly. Okay, I'm not sure exactly because I didn't really dig deep into how much it would cost and so forth. Okay, so moving on. So let's say now that let's say we're talking about an open contest, okay, and there's a whole bunch of devs, and they're all looking at the code, and what they do is they find some bugs, right, and then they submit those bugs in secret to the judge. Okay, and some people might submit identical bugs, right, and so forth. Okay. Now, what kind of bugs? They have different gradings of bugs. Okay, so they have vulnerable bugs, which are like medium or high. So stuff that's like exploitable, money will be lost, so to speak. Okay, or money might be bricked and stuff like that. So medium to high vulnerabilities. And then we have quality assurance is kind of like, does the system work properly? Maybe you could do this instead of that, and it would save you be a little more efficient on money, but it's not a danger. The money's not in danger, but maybe, I figured out a better way for you to do this transfer of this token to this token or something like that, right? And then we have gas optimization bugs where like, oh, if you did this instead of that, you would save a little bit of gas and so forth. So they have these different kinds of reports that they can submit. And of the bounty, of the total amount, they kind of go down. I think it was like 80% for these high and medium. And then, the quality assurance was 10 and gas optimizations is 5 or something like that. Okay. Now they have this thing called this Sybil protection reduce the price. Okay. So what does that mean? So let's say two devs, they submit the same bug, and the judge, looks at that bug and says, oh, these are identical submission of the same bug, but they both deserve it because they've submitted it in private. They don't know that someone else has submitted it, right? But instead of them, they could talk to each other, right? And be like, hey, let's submit this bug like with all of our different wallets, right? So every time, the same bug is submitted, then the price that the judge will award to that bug is reduced. So let's say the bug is worth $100, for example. And then when two people submit it, then that bug is only worth $80 and they split it, so 40-40. So as you can see, so it's kind of like these guys are trying to find bugs that are are hard to find or not obvious, but at the same time they're high risk and or at least medium risk vulnerabilities. Okay, so they can get a larger payout. Okay, now they have this thing called this emergency submit, and that is in the case where, like, so maybe the sponsor's code is already deployed, right, and they're auditing code that's already live on the blockchain. So in that case, they can't really wait maybe for the 7 days. As soon as they find that vulnerability, they might want the judge to immediately look at it and then tell the sponsor and so forth. So they do have a system in there for these emergency submitting of bugs, which is quite interesting. Okay. They have these other packages where they have this thing where they call bots. So you can, they have, like, if you're a warden and you create bots to do audits, right, then you can use your bot to audit as well, but it kind of gets separated away from actual humans. So there's these bots auditing. And then there's also the package where say the sponsor doesn't really want a full audit. They want some help writing tests because tests take a long time. So they can come to Code4rena and say, hey, listen, can you guys help me write some tests? And then these wardens or the people, the community will help to prepare the tests for testing the code base before an audit, or so to speak. Then they also have these ideas called like mitigation audits or so forth. Now these are pretty special. Now basically, like, let's say you've gone through one of these audits, right, and you've checked it, right? So let's say you went through an open audit and there were like 3 of these 5 guys found some heavy bugs, right? So then the sponsor can say, oh, I want to do a mitigation check as well. So then, they would open up a mitigation check, and the people who would be able to participate in this mitigation check are those 3 people who submitted the high-end vulnerabilities, because they're already familiar with the code base. It's faster, it's easier. They know what it's done, and it's checking to see, like, oh, he's changed the code, he's added code, he's modified code. Let's make sure that those changes are not, introducing a different bug or not actually solving the bug that should be solved. Okay, so they have these mitigation ideas as well. So now let's get into a little bit, just to talk a little bit about traditional audits versus these Code4rena audits. Okay, so there's quite a bit there, but I'm just going to cover a few of them. So generally speaking, if you want to get a traditional audit, there's a wait period, right? So it's a lot harder, okay, because you have to wait for them to have time to do this work for you. Okay, now Code4rena does say that they're more flexible. Now I guess that would depend more on like how many wardens they have available. If they don't have a lot of wardens, then of course their flexibility will get closer and closer to the wait period of these large firms, right? And then also the prices for these audits at the firms, they tend to be pretty systematic and set, whereas there's a little more flexibility with all of these different options and so forth, and the fact that there's just more optionality for this system, according to Code4rena. Okay, now they have employees at auditing firms, and then here we have these wardens, which are like kind of like contractors or volunteers in some ways, and this I think is very important. Okay, so the first of all is the employees at an auditing firm. They tend to be set and long-term employees. There's not a lot of turnover, right? However, the diversity of these wardens can be very vast. Okay, anybody who wants to join an open one can join. So you could have all kinds of different creative ideas and new thoughts and stuff like that, instead of just the same guys always checking code. Now that's a pro and con. Both sides are good, right? Both have their benefits. Okay. And then we also have the idea of like low versus high passion. Okay, so because these people are actually volunteering to do this job, they're not like, their boss is not telling them what to do, so they might work in a more passionate with more passion than say someone who's just trying to get his salary every month. However, the person who has his salary might be more stable and less likely to disappear and so forth. Okay, so keep that into account. And then these auditing firms tend to use a systematic approach to code. So they have, like, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and they just run that pattern again and again and again, right? But that's not the way audits work. Audits exploits. Exploits tend to be very adaptive to the ecosystem, and they change based on what is out there. So it's better if the system is adaptive with the exploiters, with the hackers, and so forth. So the Code4rena says that they're a little bit more adaptive, because the people who are doing these, the people who are winning these prizes, are the people who are finding new bugs. Whereas, an auditing firm, if you pay them, they'll produce the audit, and you might get back nothing, and they will say, oh, we found nothing. But I'm not saying they're useless, but they might come back and say, oh, we found nothing, and you still paid them, right? Whereas the employees still got paid their salaries as well. However, when it comes to this Code4rena like contest type thing, the only way these people really get paid substantial amounts is that if they find these kinds of bugs and so forth. However, the amount of money that is left over is shared with all the people who participate. So it's not like you will get nothing if you find nothing. It's just you're going to get way more by finding stuff. It's kind of like if you worked at a company and they gave you a bonus for every bug you found on top of your salary, in a sense like that. Okay, so that pretty much covers my understanding of how this Code4rena works. If you're an auditor, or if you're even like somebody like a business developer and you want to try to take part and participate in this, you can reach out to them, go to their Discord, ask more questions and so forth. And I hope this has been interesting and useful, and thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.